Assalamualaikum. My name is Ahlam Samander, and today we will be talking about Ivan Pavlov, a remarkable figure in science and psychology. While many of us know him for his groundbreaking experiments, not everyone is aware of his humble beginnings and how he shifted from theology to the field of science. Let's explore his journey together. Ivan Petrovich Pavlov was born on September 14, 1849, in Ryazan, Russia. He was the son of a priest and a grandson of a sexton, which means his family background was deeply rooted in religion. As a child, Pavlov was exposed to devout teachings and was expected to follow in his father's footsteps. Following this expectation, Pavlov began studying theology at the Ryazan Theological Seminary. At first, it seemed like he was destined to become a religious leader, but Pavlov had a growing curiosity about the natural world and how things worked. This curiosity became stronger as he got older. Eventually, Pavlov made a life-changing decision. Instead of continuing with theology, he decided to pursue science and medicine. This decision led him to leave the seminary and enroll in the Imperial Medical Academy in St. Petersburg, where he focused on physiology and biology. This shift marked the beginning of his journey into the scientific world. After deciding to read theology, Pavlov pursued his passion for science. He enrolled at the University of St. Petersburg, where he dedicated himself to studying medicine and physiology. In 1879, he successfully earned his Doctor of Medicine, marking the beginning of his professional career in the sciences. But Pavlov didn't stop there. To deepen his knowledge, he sought opportunities abroad and worked with some of the renowned scientists of his time. In Germany, he collaborated with Carl Ludwig, an expert in blood circulation, and Rudolf Heidenhain, a prominent researcher in digestion. These experiences significantly influenced Pavlov's understanding of physiology and laid the groundwork for his later achievements. In 1904, Ivan Pavlov achieved one of the highest honors in science, the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine. This award recognizes his extensive research on digestive secretions. His work uncovered the intricate processes of how the digestive system functions, paving the way for future studies in both medicine and psychology. During his career, Pavlov held a prestigious position as a professor at the Imperial Medical Academy. He also made significant contributions to the Institute of Experimental Medicine, where much of his research was conducted. These institutions became central to his scientific endeavors and provided a foundation for his experiments on classical conditioning, which we all recognize as his most famous contribution. Behind every great figure is often a source of unwavering support, and for Pavlov, that was his wife, Serafima Vasilievna. She played a vital role in his success by managing their household and providing a stable environment, allowing Pavlov to focus on his work. This partnership reflected his humble beginnings as the son of a priest, where simplicity and strong family ties shaped his character. Just as his family supported him in his early life, Serafima's care and dedication mirrored those values, proving that a strong and supportive foundation can lead to a great achievements. Before I begin explaining Pavlov's theory, let's first talk about how he discovered classical conditioning. Pavlov's discovery of classical conditioning wasn't planned. It was an accidental finding during his research on digestion. While studying digestion in dogs, Pavlov noticed something curious. The dogs began to salivate not just when they were given food, but also at the sight of the lab assistant or the sound of a door opening. This reaction wasn't a direct response to food, but to something associated with it. Classical conditioning is a type of learning through association. It involves pairing a neutral stimulus with a unconditional stimulus, leading to a learned response over time. This is how it works. Pavlov noticed that dogs would begin to salivate not just when they saw food, but also when they saw the lab assistant who usually brought the food or when they heard the sound of a bell before being fed. These were neutral stimuli. They didn't initially trigger any particular response, but through repeated association with the unconditional stimulus, which is the food, the dogs learned to associate this neutral stimuli with food, leading to salivation even in the absence of food. The process of classical conditioning has four main stages. First is before conditioning, second, during conditioning, after conditioning, and lastly, the extinction. Before conditioning, at the start, we have a neutral stimulus, something that doesn't trigger any significant response on its own. For example, the natural stimulus would be the bell. It doesn't make a dog salivate. The unconditioned stimulus, like food, naturally triggers unconditioned response, which in this case is salivation. Now, during the conditioning phase, Pavlov would repeatedly pair the neutral stimulus or the bell with the unconditioned stimulus, which is the food. And every time the bell rang, Pavlov would immediately present food to the dog, which would naturally cause the dog to salivate. Over time, the dog began to associate the sound of the bell with the arrival of food. Once the conditioning process is complete, the neutral stimulus becomes the conditioned stimulus. For example, the sound of a bell, which initially had no effect, now triggers a conditioned response, like salivation, even without the presence of food. This means the dog has learned to associate the bell with the food and now reacts to the bell alone. However, this learned response is not permanent. If the conditioned stimulus or the bell is repeatedly presented without the unconditioned stimulus, which is the food, the conditioned response, which is the salivation, gradually diminishes and may eventually disappear. This process is called extinction, showing that learned behaviors can weaken when the association is no longer reinforced. These four main stages, before conditioning, during conditioning, after conditioning, and extinction, outline the process of classical conditioning. Pavlov's discovery helps us understand how behaviors are learned and how they can change over time. Now, let's take a look at how Pavlov's groundbreaking work on classical conditioning shaped the future of psychology and influenced some of the most prominent figures in the field. Pavlov's classical conditioning theory became the foundation of behaviorism, a major school of thought in psychology. Key figures like John B. Watson and B. F. Skinner expanded on his work. Watson used Pavlov's principle in his famous Little Albert experiment, showing how fear could be conditioned. Skinner, on the other hand, built upon Pavlov's ideas to develop operant conditioning, focusing on reinforcement and punishment to shape behavior. Pavlov's work didn't stop at influencing psychologists. His discovery have had a lasting impact on fields such as education, animal training, and advertising. For instance, in advertising, companies use classical conditioning to associate their products with positive emotions, like pairing a catchy jingle with a brand to make it more memorable. His theory paved the way for techniques like behavior modification and exposure therapy, which help people overcome phobias and anxiety by gradually reducing negative associations. It has helped psychologists better understand learning and memory, allowing them to develop strategies to improve human behavior. While Pavlov's theory of classical conditioning has undeniably made significant contributions to psychology, it's important to discuss its critics and how modern perspectives have expanded upon his work. One critique of Pavlov's theory is that it oversimplifies the learning process. Classical conditioning primarily focuses on observable behaviors and does not account for internal cognitive processes like the thoughts and emotions. Additionally, it assumes that all individuals respond similarly to conditioning, overlooking individuals' differences and unique experiences that may influence learning. Modern psychology has addressed these limitations by incorporating cognitive factors in learning theories. For example, researchers now emphasize the importance of attention, memory, and expectation in conditioning. Furthermore, individual differences, such as personality, past experiences, and biological predispositions, are now recognized as playing a role in how people learn and respond to stimuli. Despite these critics, Pavlov's work remains a cornerstone of psychological research. His findings laid the foundation for exploring more complex learning mechanisms and inspired countless studies in behavioral psychology, cognitive science, and related fields. While his theory has its limitations, the way it inspired modern perspectives reminds us that no discovery stands alone. It's part of a continuous journey of learning and exploration. That concludes my part of the report on Ivan Pavlov. I hope I was able to give you a clear understanding of his contributions, particularly his theory of classical conditioning and its importance in the field of psychology. Pavlov's work serves as a foundation for the topics that my fellow reporters will discuss further. Thank you for listening, and now let's move on to the next part of the presentation.